Light it.
Welcome back to The Triple Option, presented by Wendy's. Rob Stone, Urban Meyer, Mark Ingram II. And hey, you know what, guys? Who says you can't go home again? Not Rich Rod, man. Rich Rodriguez, the now two-time head coach at West Virginia University, joins us, man. And Coach, it has been so fun to watch your career. I know some of the pockets have been more fun than others, but man, when you had West Virginia going in the early 2000s, that was absolute must-see TV. And I was so happy for you and what you guys succeeded at Jacksonville State to give yourself the opportunity to come back home to West Virginia. But in the end, what made you and your family decide that a return to West Virginia was the right move for you?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Since I left, I've been out west in the desert, been in the bayou, been in the hills of Alabama, everywhere in between. But it was, we absolutely loved our time at Jack State. We had transitioned up from 1AA to 1A. We were having success, going to bowl games, won the conference and all that. And so I have been perfectly happy just finishing my career out there. But when this came open, it was like, we were close the last time we were here. I think we can win a national championship. I hadn't seen the facility since I left, and they did a fantastic job with our facility. And so all the pieces are in place for us to have a chance to win it all. And ultimately, that's it. This is my last stop. It didn't take me long. Sometimes you take a new job, and it takes you a while to acclimate to yourself, know where all the bodies are buried and the traps are laid. It didn't take any time. One day I knew that because I'd been here, done that. So it was an easy transition from that. The only hard part is I think I've got two players on the team that have started games. That's it. So we got a whole new roster, but it's been fun. The best part is that the facilities are in place now. I know the town, I know the school. I got a great staff put together, and we're constructing our roster every day. So we'll get after it and see what happens.
Hey, let's go. I'm not, Mark and Rob don't even know this, but Rich Rod and I go back to the 80s. And Rich started this, he was at, I believe, Glenville. Wasn't it Glenville or something like that?
Glenville State
And you
College,
started doing the style of offense that I was real intrigued by. And then I was at Notre Dame, and Dan Mullen and I, we take the job at Bowling Green after studying a lot of Rich Rod. And Coach Rodriguez doesn't get enough credit, as I don't believe we do, but there was really no template for what you were doing. When we started the spread offense at Bowling Green, Rob and Mark, that it's not like, let's go study these other teams. It did not exist. That's what I try to tell people. And the whole idea about reading the defenders and all of that, and the tempo that Rich Rod uses. So are you still, I can't wait to see, I didn't see you at your previous job. Obviously, we're going to see you now. Are you still running that spread? How much different is it 15 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah, there's a lot of new elements to it, but the core of it, Urban, would have been the same that you came with Dan, 30 years ago. And Urban came most guys come for a day, Urban stayed for like a week. That's because I was feeding him. I was feeding him also. He was hell, I couldn't get him out of there. And the worst part about it, he goes back and takes our stuff and does it better than we were doing. I'm like, hell, we got to turn around and stay Urban now because he took our shit and made it better.
So every think about that. Every year we went to each other's school for 10 years.
That's right, we did. We went back and forth, and it's been a blessing. But the core of what we're doing, the tempo part of it, I still think is a non-negotiable. We're going to do that. I think it's the most overlooked factor in football is conditioning, and we want to make it a factor in every game. And the spread part is still there. We're a lot more 11 personnel than we used to be 10 personnel. Now it's 11, but our 11 is our tight end is all over the place. He's not just he's attached, he's detached, he's more of a bigger athlete. But the base of what we do of playing with 11, having our quarterback be a factor, be a willing runner, is always going to be the core of what we do offensively. Because that guy at Jack State last year, we had a guy, Tyler Huff, was probably a 4.7 guy, but he was a willing and a tough runner. So he might not have got 30, but he was going to get 10. But they had to defend him. And the pace of it, the tempo of it, every day I think about how can we go faster? How we go faster. The genesis behind that is that, teams aren't used to doing it and used to seeing that. We want to do that as fast as we can for 3 quarters. We have a 2-score lead in the 4th quarter. Then we're going to milk it and take the clock down and win the game. So, but the tempo part of it, we're faster now than we were 5 years ago and 25 years ago by far.
Coach, what's your favorite TikTok dance?
If the guys could dance like you, I probably will allow it. Here's what it got. And they didn't complain. Actually, I had a couple players say, "Coach, this is embarrassing. They're dancing in our own locker room. They think it's we're all
They think it's cool."
Yeah,
I'm with you on it, Coach. I'm with you on it.
But my whole point is, this is my point on the dancing part. Like people say, well, you're limiting their opportunity to make money. I'm like, make money. Do you think somebody's going to pay their ass to see them dancing in tights on TikTok? You know how I want them to make money? Be good at football.
Right.
Really good at football. And now you can get paid here and at the next level if you're really good at football. I'm not going to pay you if you're really good at TikTok dancing, but I'll pay you if you're really good at football. You know what I mean?
I love it, Coach. I'm right
What's
behind
TikTok?
you, man.
I'm sorry, I don't.
It's some
Coach,
bull
don't
crap
go
where
there.
they be doing all
Urban.
type of little dances on social media.
I would like to see Urban Meyer's reaction if he was at Ohio State or Florida and his players were in tights, doing a choreographed dance, which, I'd be like, are you kidding me? That 10 minutes that he spent right there could have been 10 minutes in the weight room. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, Coach. I'm with you. Hey, you right when you right, and you right about this one. I'm right behind you on this TikTok stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach, what's life in the Big 12 going to be like for you and West Virginia this upcoming season? And where is the Big 12 kind of in the hierarchy of college football in this day and age?
What's interesting to me is that I probably know the Big 12 better than most other leagues because most of the teams in there I played when I was at Arizona. Like half the Pac-12 is now there, and then we played BYU a couple times as well. So I know a lot of those teams or their programs, but every year is different. Arizona State went from last to first last year, and we'll be picked somewhere near the bottom. I don't say we're going to be first, but there's going to be. It's not there was one team that's just going to dominate. I think it's going to be kind of wide open and probably going to be that way for a couple of years. So our expectation is to win and compete for the championship every year, including our first year. This will be the hardest year, without question. The hardest year is the first year. But that being said, the Big 12 is pretty wide open, I think.
We did a big noon. Penn State visited West Virginia last year, and I coached at West Virginia when I coached at Notre Dame, and we played West Virginia. And I remember that crowd back when I was at Notre Dame. And then last year, and Neil Brown was such a good dude. He had that great quarterback. I picked him to win the damn game, and that just didn't happen. How far off are you?
Well, there are days like this morning's practice that I was like, gosh, I thought we'd be further ahead. But I'm pretty critical anyway, looking at after every practice. So I'm trying not to make all the judgments now. I do think the guys have a good attitude. I think they've bought in. They ain't got a choice, but I think they're trying hard. It's just I like to say my roster is set, but we got another portal period coming open. We got another handful of guys that aren't here yet. So there's still too many unknowns for me to know where we're at. And there's so many guys that haven't played. I mean, hell, two guys have started, have started in the whole roster. So it's a little bit of different dynamic, but I got to, again, the staff is in place. We have all the stuff that you need to have to recruit them. Facility wise, all the stuff I wanted to get done got done while I was gone. So the facility wise is here. And I think you probably saw it or most of it. Beautiful. And then we're going to be in the rev share business. We're going to have enough that we can fill out a roster and pay our guys that have earned it in a pretty good clips there. So I think that's we can get there quicker than maybe in the old days where it take you a couple, 2 or 3 years. But now, is it all going to happen this first year? That'll be the hardest challenge.
Hey, Coach, man, I feel like we have a small connection because I remember, and I'm from Michigan. I remember you took the job in 2008 at Michigan, and it was kind of like late in the signing period. And Michigan never offered me a scholarship. They didn't even recruit me. And when you took that job, Michigan started coming to the school. You said Fred Jackson to the school and kind of had an offer for me. And I always appreciate it.
Didn't you? Damn it, Tom.
Well, you started recruiting me a week before signing day.
I might still be the coach there if you'd have said yes.
Well, no, I appreciate you though, because you believed in me even when Michigan didn't all them years. But no,
But I do remember watching your film, and it was like, "What's the problem? What are we waiting on?" You know what I mean? And Fred, my running back coach, he agreed the same way. He's like, "Yeah, I mean, what the heck? This is a no-brainer." Like sometimes you got to watch a guy's film, and it takes you, 10, 15 minutes, and sometimes you watch it, and it takes 10 seconds. You're like 10 seconds. What are we waiting on? But
nah,
anyway,
yeah, I appreciate that. But no, after coaching at Jacksonville State, coach, like, what are it's a new day and age, NIL, transfer portal, all this. So you have a unique perspective from going from Jacksonville State now to West Virginia. Um, what are the lower level programs going through with NIL and transfer portal, and like, is it sustainable?
yeah, like last year, Jack State, we had a pretty good second year. First year, being eligible for bowl game, we went to a bowl game, won the bowl game, and then all of a sudden, we had a handful, maybe 7, 8 players that got moved up, went to a Power 4 teams, just got bought, and
Yeah,
we knew it was coming. And so we had 60 new players last year's team. And so when we started off 0-3, everybody was kind of panicking. I'm like, we're going to be okay. It's just taking these little guys. Most of them hadn't gotten there till the summer. It's taking us a little longer to acclimate them. So I
yeah,
learned that we better speed that process up. And once we got on the roll and those guys got comfortable with the system, and they kind of took off. So I think the group of 5 is going to have, everybody's got turnover now, but I think they know that you're going to lose a guy. I remember
yeah,
talking to Coach Saban about this a couple of years ago. He said, if you sign a really good player out of high school, and he's going to play really good for 1 or 2 years, somebody bigger school is going to take him and poach him up. And I said, yeah, but at least we had him for 1 or 2 years. So that's kind of the approach you're taking. Like if I can get a guy for 1 or 2 years and he moves on, I don't want that to happen, but at least I had him for 1 or 2 years. So I
right,
tell our formula here, I tell our coaches, I said, I don't have like so many high schools, so many portals, so many junior college guys. Get the best players you can get. If they got 4 years to go, that's great. They only got 1 year, well, we'll take them. But we just got to get the best players you can get. And then our culture has to stay consistent. Everybody talks about that stuff. Urban knows what I'm talking about. But do you really make your guys adhere to your culture? Do your coaches make sure that is the standard every single day, every single rep, everything you do? That's for us is non-negotiable. And people say it's old school, whatever. I think it's just coaches being coached,
right.
coach doing their job. I say players. I never knew what a players coach was.
Mm,
I'm like, shit, coaches coach, players play, administrators administrate. I mean, that's our job. I
yeah.
told my team this morning, I said, we are hired to coach you, to make you better than you thought you could ever be. And I said, that's the way we're going to do things here. And good players want to have it that way.
Yeah.
Has anything changed in your culture format from your first stop at West Virginia to where you are right now in Morgantown?
Here's what's the difference. I was telling a group this last night. I said 25 years ago, Urban Meyer, Rich Rodriguez could tell a guy, hey, run through that wall, and he'll run through that wall. Now they'll still do it, but they want to know why. And if they don't give the right answer, they'll say, well, that ain't what it says on Google right here. So, the damn guys are smarter than us. They're walking around with a computer. So you better know why. You better know why. This is the why. And so I'll tell them, so this is the why. But I'm still going to coach you hard, but sometimes you got to explain a little bit more. But you can't sacrifice. It's like there's our guys. I tell our coaches, if there's one play in practice or game, but in practice especially, because that's where football teams get made, where a guy is loafing or he's soft, and you don't say something when you see it immediately, you've created a problem. It
Mm,
has to be immediate. It ain't like, well, I don't want to upset him right now, or I'll remember about it later. I say it, and then I see it, I say it, then it's over with. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, you have to address it every time, not most of the time, but every time.
What's been an unexpected, pleasant, or negative surprise about returning home to Morgantown and taking the program back over again for a second time?
It's a fair question. I don't know if there's been a whole lot of surprises. I think everybody, they'll assume, well, he got hired because of what we did here the first time here. And I know that was a little bit of that, but I would like to think we got hired because we won at Jack State. And if we had lost at Jack State, nobody was going to call me.
Right.
But we won in a tougher situation at Jack State, and so that allowed us to take this move. And everybody, it doesn't bother me if people want to bring the excitement of the 2000s back, and we had the Pat Whites and Steve Slayton and Noel Devine, all those guys, because they were great players. But what we want to have back is we had really, really good players that played really hard, and it didn't matter who got the credit for it or anything like that. And so that has always been the staple of our programs, and that's what's got to be the staple going forward.
Yeah, tell them, Stone, what we got for him.
All right, Coach, we've been peppering you with questions, right, for the last, whatever it is, 15 minutes. So we like to give you the opportunity to throw one at us. Usually it goes to the two other guys, which is totally fine. It's the way it should go, to be honest with you. So you have free reign to fire off a question at the three of us right now.
I appreciate that. This is what people say. Well, they want to. I said, I'm not the same coach I was 20 years ago. I'm not the same coach I was 20 days ago. I'm not the same coach I was a year ago. I better be better now than I was then. But when my players get better, I want to be better. I'm a better coach now than I was the last time I was at West Virginia. But anyway, so that's my question. And you guys may not want to do it. But you see it out there in this new era of transfer portal, NIL, unlimited free agency, all this kind of stuff. The teams that you guys have covered or coaches you've covered that have had success, what's the common factor other than having really good players that they've bought? What's the common factor to those teams that have been better than everybody else in the last 2 years?
I'm going to answer that first. I think it's a no-brainer. I think with this NIL and what I witnessed the Wolverines do and the Buckeyes do the last 2 years, you got grown-ass men in that locker room. My best teams were when I had men, not boys, in the locker room. And you look at the Wolverines and Buckeyes, those kids all came back. So, you know, it's not the 17, 18. You got 21-year-old dudes that have been through the war. So I think and then I started reflecting back as I'm watching these teams. Well, my best teams are the same way. I had the Pouncies, I had these, guys that didn't put up with any shit. And I mean, the locker room was the locker room because they were grown men. And I think that's the way I know Penn State's trying to do the same thing this year because a lot of those kids came back. Where in the old days, they all left because they had to get paid. Now they're getting paid.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I agree with Coach. I think it would have to start with the culture. You talk about what Michigan had, they had a culture. You talk about Ohio State, they had a culture. The guys in that locker room, they were leaders. They policed themselves. They held each other accountable. And so when you have guys who have a standard, and the standard isn't set by only the coaches, the standard is set and executed and upheld within the locker room with each other. I think that's what I've seen the past 2 seasons. It's only my second season being able to cover Big Noon college football with my guys right here. But those 2 years with Michigan and Ohio State, you had grown dudes, like you said, Coach, who were alphas, who upheld the standard. They knew the standard. They been through the standard for 4 or 5 years, and they weren't going to let somebody come in and not live up to the standard and, compromise what they came back for, which is ultimately to win a national championship. So I think it was the locker room and them being able to execute what the message is from not only the coaches, but they policed it and enforced the message within the locker room themselves.
Probably had a culture where guys love football, not like it.
Yes.
Loved it and needed it. If you take it away from them, it broke their heart, right? I mean, that's kind of, I tell you guys, I mean, it's different dynamic, but I said, in the Midwest and down south, you see dudes that just love it and need it. If you threaten to take something away from it, it crushes them. You know, some other guys just like it. They may like the fame, the attention, the money, whatever, but they don't really love football.
Right.
And hopefully you get I guess you guys have probably seen you get the really talented teams that love football, just love getting after your ass. You probably got what you need.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you, brother.
Well, we appreciate your time, Coach.
I want to throw one date at you. September 13th this year.
Yeah, each
week 3.
Yeah. Yeah, eat shit Pitt. Pitt's the worst. I say too many 4-letter words. There's none that's worse than PITT.
Oh. Eat shit Pitt.
This is why I love college football.
This
is why I love having Rich Rod back and in our domain and in the Big 12. And Coach, you've been an absolute pleasure to cover and watch from afar through the years. You've been just one of my favorites. And I'm so happy that we're this close. We're this close to getting back to West Virginia, man. Coach had a hell of a time in West Virginia last year. Now he became a big fan of Morgantown and company. We got to get our tails back there, man.
Urban, I'm expecting to see you, brother.
I'm the one that had the Mountaineer and the musket outfit.
That's right.
On that.
You too, you're welcome as well. Everybody's welcome.
Hey, man, week 3, let's get Big Noon to Morgantown for the backyard
brawl.
Bring
him to Morgantown. We need to have you here.
All right.
You're
You're in charge of the dinner reservations.
Thanks, guys.
Coach Rich Rodriguez, welcome back to Morgantown, and thanks for joining us this week on the Triple Option.
Appreciate you guys.
Light it.